Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll receive insight, inspiration, and advice for aligning your mind, body, and spirit to achieve a fulfilled life and live your purpose with me, your host, Jennifer Spohr. You'll also hear from other leaders who share their inspirational stories and wisdom in living fulfilled, on purpose, and making an impact. If you're a mission-driven leader and you're passionate about learning and integrating all the things that empower you to live and lead a fulfilled, purpose-led life, this is the show for you. Hey everyone, I'm excited to have as a guest to the show today, Dan Sykes. He is an entrepreneur, filmmaker, body worker, and founder of the Somatic Training Network, a company dedicated to learning and sharing somatic arts and practices from around the world. Welcome, Dan. Welcome from Maine.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. Really nice to be here on your show.
Yeah, yes, I'm really excited to have you and to have this conversation and to really dig into the work that you're doing, because I have to say this is a field that I'm not, entirely familiar with, and I spent some time reading up a bit, on your website and what you're up to, and I think the work you're doing is really fascinating.
Well, thanks very much. A lot of people, when they hear the word somatic, are hearing this word for the first time and feel that they're not really familiar with the work we do in nervous system training. But really, everyone is familiar with disciplines that train the nervous system through movement. Yoga does it, Tai Chi does it. There's many ancient arts that train the nervous system, but when they were invented, they didn't understand the body the way we do now through science, and nervous system was not in their language, in their nomenclature. They used words like chi and chakras and many other words to represent what science now shows us is the training of the nervous system. And there's many dozens of disciplines, some we've heard of, the ancient ones mostly, but also modern ones that do different things for the nervous system as well.
Awesome. I want to learn more about that, but tell me more about, what inspired you to actually pursue this work?
My entire younger life was very non-physical. I was a creator. I was an actor, a musician. I really lived in the world of ideas and words, and was probably 30 or 40 pounds heavier most of my life. And I got to the point by about 45 years old where I had been very successful in business with my ex-wife. I went back to my first love of filmmaking, spent 4 years writing, producing, directing a feature film that never got distributed. And that failure, probably not coincidentally, at the same time my marriage came apart after over 20 years of being together with kids. I really found myself heading deeply into a midlife crisis. This is what the theme of the book, Somatic Fanatic, is all about. And I was in such emotional pain and turmoil that I felt I had to do something about it. I started with yoga, but very quickly met ex-Russian Special Forces soldiers who were training civilians for the first time in this very unknown martial art called Sistema, which is completely based on improving the function of your nervous system. And this was the very beginning of my journey of finding a way out of not feeling good in my psyche, not feeling good in my body. And instead of exercising for strength, moving to improve my ability to move and feel vital, somehow those words and that approach was acceptable to me and started me down a road that brought me all the way through to taking hold of my life and becoming my vocation over a period of years.
I love that. Something earlier, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it's so key, is that so many people are conditioned to kind of live in their upper chakras, maybe, or to, not be as grounded in their body. Those emotions of worry and anxiety and all of that comes from our ego mind. And so achieving a balance between our mind and our spirit, and then also being grounded in our physical body is so important.
It is. And the way we see ourselves in the Feldenkrais method, which I'm involved with as well, Dr. Feldenkrais, who the method is named after, he talks about self-image, the way we view ourselves, the way we feel about ourselves. And sometimes some aspects of that self-image are accurate, and some of those aspects are very inaccurate. For instance, I always felt that I was very weak, that I was very physically weak. I had real trouble running as a kid. To me, it was just torture. I've come to find out decades later that I really didn't know how to walk properly. So there was a good reason I couldn't run.
Wow.
But this weakness turned out to really be an illusion as well. When I started my very first Systema class, coming at 45 years old, and I said to the teacher, we really have to focus on strengthening my core, this phrase so many people have heard around the world, because I can't even do a single sit-up. And he was shocked and said, this can't be true. You must be able to do a single sit-up. And I showed him. I got down on the ground and I was struggling and huffing and puffing, and I just could not get up. And he asked me to stand up, and he felt my stomach for a second and said, can we try an experiment? And I said, sure. And he gave me a type of strike the Russians do, which they call a therapeutic strike. It's a soft fisted strike designed to encourage whatever muscle it hits to kind of let go very quickly and deeply. And he gave me a strike to my stomach, and I felt my whole stomach kind of spill out. And he said, go down and try to do a sit-up. And I did 15 sit-ups with no effort at all. And I got up and was amazed. And he said, a lot of people that are carrying extra weight, they spend their entire life sucking their stomach in. Your stomach is plenty strong, Dan. It is locked in this permanent tension. There's no muscle left to do any of the work. That's why you think you're weak. You're actually very strong. You've got a six-pack there. You can't see it because you've got extra pounds on you, but you've got this rocking six-pack actually. And what I found over the next years of training is by learning to let go of chronic tension, all of us have much more strength than we think we do, because by middle age, by 30 years and later, we're walking around with so much permanently contracted musculature that we can't even feel, we don't even perceive how much tension we're carrying, that it is robbing us of strength because there's that much less muscle to do work with. And it's fighting against the other muscles and all kinds of nasty problems. So letting go is most important. Once you get over 30, letting go of chronic tension is just as important as building strength.
I guess I should ask first, before I ask my other question, who is your ideal client? Like, who are the people that would typically benefit the most from this work?
What we do at Somatic Training Network with our online training platform is we have divided nervous system training to help people identify themselves into brands. We have a brand called PainWorks with an X for trauma recovery. We have a brand called WellWorks with an X for seniors. Smart Move for people who are sports or dance enthusiasts, want some kind of high performance movement. So the nervous system is the system by which we intake all sensory input, and by which we command our movement. So nervous system training literally can help anyone. But the key is what kind of nervous system training is right for you, and what kind of nervous system training is right for you and you and you. My company tries to create conversations with lots of different people from all walks of life, so they feel that we understand where they're coming from, whether you're a working mom with a sore back because you're carrying kids around all day long, or whether you're an executive with high anxiety all the time and you need to calm down, whether you're a senior citizen who feels stiff and that you can't get around, or a lack of balance, or a sports person that wants more performance. Every one of these kinds of people can benefit from some type of nervous system training, some type of somatic art. Our job is to meet you where you are and suggest to you. We're sort of like the matchmaker, where we try to match people with appropriate types of discipline and then appropriate instructors that they can feel a connection to. Because the key is you've got to train your nervous system at least 3 times a week, and finding a discipline that's comfortable and exciting for you, and people that you want to train with, and a community of people you want to train with. That's what our job is to match make for whoever walks through our door, to really focus in on them and say, what do we think this person might enjoy? And maybe you want to try this, maybe you want to try that.
What you said toward the end about finding something that works for you is so key, because so many people are conditioned to believe that, success or the right way to do something is very compartmentalized. And that's not true, right? It's like our success is defined uniquely to who we are. And so I really believe in what you said about that finding something that we enjoy doing, and that fits for us is so important.
It's really key, because while there are dozens of disciplines that can help you train your nervous system in all kinds of ways, from the most gentle to intermediate type of movements, all the way through vigorous and martial arts approaches to nervous system training, what I am trying to bring to the world, what my company is trying to remind everyone of, is that there's only one way to train your nervous system, really. And all these disciplines are built on this. It's by doing 2 things at the same time. And everyone has this natural capacity. You don't even need a discipline. Right now, you can train your nervous system by doing 2 things simultaneously. One is to move in very slow motion. If I raise my hand like this, I'm going to raise my hand with a habit that I might have had for 20 years. Your nervous system must make habits for efficiency, but sometimes those habits become inefficient. If I move slowly, I cannot use a habit. And also, at the same time, I'm going to try to feel what this motion feels like. If I move very slow for the purpose of feeling, I can feel there's 3 things I can focus my attention on. I can either focus on tension. Where is most of the work happening? For most of us, it's right here, right here. This is key. It's overworking for most everybody. I can feel the tension, and I can now try to do it easier, try to do this with less effort. We've all heard this in yoga class and Qigong class. Now we move again. We try to do it just with less effort, and I'm still feeling this. I feel there's less effort. I can also alternatively instead of aiming at my attention at tension, I can aim my attention at ease. I can do the same movement. And now I can scan my body. What feels more easeful? Well, I feel a little tug going on up here in the trapezoids, but it feels easy to me. It doesn't feel like it's overworking, like many of us have that sensation here. So I can feel that ease. My fingers feel easeful. I'm doing the same motion, but now I'm focusing on what is easeful in my movement. And then the third thing we can focus on as a kind of category of sensation is pleasure. I can do the same movement, and now I can feel, where does it feel delicious to me? And for me, as I raise my arms under the ribs, as the ribs spread, has this delicious sensation. So you don't need a discipline. What you need to do is pick out a number of times per week that you're going to practice, just like any other instrument, and you are going to move in slow motion while aiming your attention at feeling that movement in more and more and more detail over time. We're training ourselves not to move better. We're actually training ourselves to feel better. And by feeling with more skill, physical feeling, the nervous system itself improves our movement. And this is a natural capacity we all have.
I love that. Something I'm interested in learning more about from you as well is, part of the key to anyone's transformation or change, right, is their willingness to do the work. Have you ever worked with clients who have had resistance to changing their habits or movements and working with you?
Yes. For me, a lot of people in this world have the most resistance from guys who are involved in very rough and tumble sports or exercise cultures. They have an aversion to any sense of relaxing. That to relax, it makes no sense to them in any way. In the West, we are building up muscle mass and we're trying to have six packs and look ripped all the time. The problem with looking ripped all the time means that your muscles are never relaxing. And we have this strange culture. So women in the West seem much more receptive to the idea of relaxing permanently clenched muscles for the purpose of wellness. Men have a higher resistance to it. They are not told about this. We're surrounded by a world of people with back pain who are being told they need to strengthen their core, when the whole reason their back hurts in the first place is because their muscles are permanently contracted in their back. And we have learned doctors and physiotherapists and trainers telling these people, instead of to relax those muscles, they're telling them to work them more. And as anyone knows who's been prescribed strengthening your core to overcome back pain, nearly everyone experiences more back pain, and it does not solve the case. So there's quite a bit of resistance depending on what kind of sports or training culture you come from. If it seems more absurd that relaxing on purpose is a key part of wellness, this is a difficult message for some people to take in at face value.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on energies, like any unhealed trauma or unprocessed emotions having an impact on the body?
Well, PTSD in any form, whether it's full-blown post-traumatic stress disorder or smaller variants of it, all of us, when we're kids, we react to shock and unpleasant sensation by relaxing. When a 2-year-old falls down the stairs, they relax and they tumble like a bag of potatoes, and maybe they cry, but there's no harm done. When a 30-year-old falls down the stairs, there's going to be casts involved. There's going to be slings. They're going to hurt themselves, because by that point, we have changed our habit where surprise and unpleasant sensation cause us to tense up instead of letting go. And so this builds over time to tense up from shock. We can do that 3 to 4 times faster than we can then let that shock go. And depending on what the situation is, if there's a continually dangerous situation that you got shocked, but it's going on and on, the more you hold on to that clenching and higher heartbeat, the more likely you are to get full-blown post-traumatic stress disorder. They know from studies that if your heartbeat is still elevated in an hour after the incident that caused your shock, your probability of getting PTSD soars very, very high. As this happens to us over and over and over again, we have layer after layer of, what would you say, emotionally triggered habits, where for a certain amount of time, certain muscles in my chest tensed up and they never let go. You see dogs, if they get almost hit by a car and they're shocked, how they shake, their entire body shakes. And humans can do that too, but a lot of times we don't. So we wind up carrying these physical residues of emotionally unpleasant events in our lives as layer after layer of these patterns of permanent contraction in our musculature. And if you were to sit at a psychologist's office for a couple of years and finally get to the point where you're willing to look at some of those major traumas and face those fears of reliving it again, for some people, once they become free of that, psychologically, their body begins to shake and they literally shake out this huge amount of physical tension. What I know from the Russian system is that you can go backwards. You can apply pressure to certain muscles and present the nervous system with this stark choice of suffer with the feeling of pressure against tight muscles or relax. and let it go. And in some cases, when those muscles finally, when the nervous system finally decides to let go muscles that are part of some kind of memory blocking, those memories will sweep back through you. I've had several of what I call these cathartic episodes. I went through the ice on a snowmobile about 15 years ago now, and should be dead. The only thing that saved us was that it was 20 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, and we got out of the water pretty quick. We were still in a very dangerous situation, but it was very traumatic. And I had that memory excised from my psyche and my fear of cold water ever since that happened, not by talking it through, but by having a practitioner push my muscles and teach me how to deal with the fear until that let go, and all those memories kept flooded back into my head for some amount of seconds. I didn't even know I was in a room anymore. I really felt like I was back out there on the ice, and I shook and shaked, and my teeth were chattering for about a half an hour, and I was so cold, but the trauma of it was out of me. And I do cold water dipping now, and I'm in and out of the ice all the time. And the guy who I did it with, who went through the ice with me, didn't go through all that. And still, I can see that trauma is in him when he's in certain situations looking at cold water and ice. It freaks him out still. So you can go in either way. But yeah, trauma gets caught in our bodies physically.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'd love to hear more about your book. Tell us what it's about. And
my book is called Somatic Fanatic. It has that pithy little title because so few people know the word somatic, representing, in my definition, nervous system training of any kind. It's the story of how I slowly discovered several masters, really very master level instructors teaching different disciplines of nervous system training, and how this journey around the world and meeting 7 or 8 master level practitioners and training under them first got me out of my depression of feeling that at 45, the best part of my life was over. And, the typical midlife crisis feelings of now what? Am I still invited to the party of having a good time as a person, or am I now out of it? But slowly, over the experiences I talk about in the book, which range all through Europe, all through the United States to Japan, I started doing the body work of the Russian soldiers and became professionalized in that. Also got involved in a 4-year training program with the Feldenkrais Method in New York City, which isn't quite over because of COVID. We're 2 years behind to finish it up because of COVID. But my interaction with certain people in practicing was so profound that it's the change in me and the change in the people I was working with just to train myself became so profound that I decided that I had sold a company several years before. I was kind of early retired. I could do anything I want or nothing. And it slowly dawned on me that the obscurity of some of these disciplines and just the lack of the common everyday understanding that training our nervous system is an essential part of wellness that needs to be taken seriously by the West. Somehow our ancestors in the West completely dropped the ball on having a slow motion discipline. In Asia and South America and Africa, many cultures have this slow motion discipline for thousands of years. In the West, somehow we didn't. And it just started feeling more unacceptable to me that this stuff is in these little hidden corners and not just everyday knowledge. And I slowly came to feel that instead of aiming my skills as a filmmaker and a storyteller and musician at entertainment, that maybe it would be a nicer feeling life for me to aim all those skills I have at this mission of bringing this simple, great news to everyone that simply moving in slow motion and feeling it in more and more detail on a regular basis can break you out of this invisible cage of tension that so many of us are trapped in, and is taking such a massive toll on our health, wellness, and our emotional health as well.
Absolutely. And in moving slower, it anchors us more into the present moment as well. And that's really where we're empowered to create, the feelings and the reality that we want.
Yeah.
So many people, that tension, I believe, comes from, that so many people tend to live in the future, that worry, that anxiety in anticipation of things that haven't even happened.
Absolutely. And these lessons of how silly that can be sometimes can be told physically when you're training. There's an acronym we use called Future Events Appearing Real, FEAR. And I found myself very susceptible to when I, in the martial world, was training my nervous system with what we call, negative impulses, uncomfortable impulses. I would react, say someone is going to press their finger in the old days when this was all tight. You press their finger in, it's going to hurt. But I would be so convinced that it was about to hurt in a half a second. It was going to hurt so much more than it does right now, that this microscopic thing starts happening where instantly I start tensing up, anticipating that, Dan, it's going to hurt more now. And then my muscles tense up and it hurts a little bit more. And the nervous system's like, see, I told you it was going to hurt more. And you're tensing up and you're reacting to a level of pain that has not actually occurred. I was just very susceptible to being absolutely convinced it was going to become unbearable in just a little second, until after a while, my conscious mind and my nervous system came to conclude, wow, you have this habit of, you're having a pain level of 4. You're totally convinced it's going to go to 11 on a scale of 10 any second. And that's what you're reacting to, is this, like you're saying, this fantasy of what you think the future is guaranteed to be. And it's not guaranteed to be as awful and horrible as we all think it is, actually.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I did want to ask you, I didn't see where this was noted. Your upcoming book, when is it going to be available?
Somatic Fanatic is already available.
Oh, it's
right
already
now.
available. Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on my next book, which I won't go into. That's going to be released in the autumn of 2022. We're aiming for, but Somatic Fanatic is available now. The audio book is going to be available in about 2 weeks, and I've recorded a bunch of that, and I'm going to do the last 4 chapters in a couple days. Get into the studio and record the rest of that. It's a quick read. It is about nervous system training, but it really is about the emotional changes in my life, what brought me to each of these masters, what they each taught me, and the questions I was left with in training in certain disciplines, and trying to find answers to why this stuff is so impactful. I came from the martial arts world, and is the rough training really important? Is it essential, or can the same things be learned very, very gently? And I came to find out that gentle arts do certain things, and intermediate arts do certain things, and vigorous arts do certain things to train the nervous system and adjust our sense of self-image. Now, Feldenkrais Method is nothing but totally gentle for someone in trauma recovery, for someone with neurological problems, for someone who doesn't feel very vibrant, maybe someone recovering from a long illness, just getting out of bed for the first time, someone who's elderly and hasn't been exercising in a while. Feldenkrais Method and the very gentle arts, perfectly appropriate for them. But there's things that training in the martial arts are going to do for your self-image that a gentle art will never do. It will change your opinion of who you are in this world and your relationship to others, that there's no substitute for getting in there and getting vigorous. So it's a wide world of training, and there's a perfect fit for you. Whoever you are watching this, there's a perfect discipline for right where you are right now, that you can train your nervous system with zero sweat, zero discomfort, all the way up through getting sweaty and being vigorous and still improving the function of your nervous system. It's all available.
Fascinating. Dan, in closing, is there anything else that you're feeling guided to share?
I would just say, please, everybody, check out the video podcast, Somatic Fanatic, on YouTube. We have Facebook and Instagram and all the bells and whistles. We do long form episodes on Somatic Fanatic, and it's usually aimed at a specific kind of person. We interview a top level instructor about the way they approach training for maybe pain or for elderly or whatever the theme of the episode happens to be. And in every episode, we have links and opt-ins to absolutely free training, a full-blown class that you can do to dip your toe in, 3 class workshops. And what we're trying to do is get people to move, to try it, to feel improvement, and to just start them down the road to training their nervous system on Somatic Fanatic on YouTube.
Dan, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. And I have to say, I learned a lot. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know our listeners are really going to enjoy this conversation as well.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate you inviting me, and I wish you and your listeners all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can achieve a fulfilled life, live your purpose, and make an impact as a mission-driven leader, visit me at jenniferspore.com